Well, hello, it's Doug from Emerald Hill Skies. We're on the southeastern edge of Louisville, Kentucky, and it's a very clear night tonight. We're still getting used to this new framework of the mini PC out in the observatory outside, about 200 feet from outside this office where I'm sitting here in my shirt sleeves. Temperature outside is about 44 degrees. Let's see if we can get things set up. Here's the scope. Let me just bring that back into the frame a little better. Okay, there's that. And let's see. Here's the combo screen. I'll just quickly go through each component. Up in the upper left here, you see the main camera screen from our 11-inch RASA telescope, which is pictured down here in the lower right. Right here at the very bottom right. This is a ZWO ASI178MM Pro camera peering through that 11-inch RASA scope, Rowe-Ackermann Schmidt Astrograph telescope. There's a little sidebar here you can see from SharpCap, the software we're using to observe. And then up here you can see the Pegasus Astro PowerBox software that lets us see our readings that we have outside. It's about 37 degrees on top of the scope, 60% humidity, and then you can see the dew point is at 25. You can see our rig rack at the base of the scope is pumping out our 13.2 to 13.4 volts, plenty of volts there, 1.5 to 1.7 amps. And that kick that you see back and forth is when the dew heater comes on. You can see that measured up here in the dew heater coming on, and what that does is it allows the main glass on the front of the scope to remain free of dew. Then down here in the bottom you see also the wattage. Over here at the right you see the picture of me, and then right below is this electronically assisted astronomy control panel that we use to tie together this suite of programs. Pete over in the Isle of Wight over off the coast of UK, a little island there, travel out to it by a ferry, went out and visited him once, a fun visit. He's the guy who programmed that control panel. It's custom made so that we can tie together this suite of programs. Right below is Astro Planner, and that's where we get our list of targets that we're going to try to observe. It's tied together with our scope, as is SharpCap here, connected to our mount. I'll try that one more time. There you go. So Astro Planner is connected to our mount as well, so it can actually guide the scope to the target. And then, like I say, down here in the lower right, you see a real-time view of the scope outside and then the observatory. You can see it's a roll-off roof observatory, so you're looking past the scope up into the sky all the time. Okay, so let's get started. We're going to go over here and look at our 1001 Celestial Wonders to See Before We Die. This book by Michael Bakich gives just a little bit of a narration or a quick description of each object, sometimes a picture as well, so that we can sort of learn a little bit about each object as we go. So let's tackle a first object here. I'm going to go over to Astro Planner and kind of size up the sorting that's gone on. I'll hit home to go up to the top target. It says the best time is 1:45 a.m. but right now the altitude is 25 degrees. It's not a bad height. We could probably do better for our first target. Let's just go to a simple multi-star system first. This is Theta Aurigui, and we'll let you look at the scope and slew that target first. So you can see the scope starting up out there. That's a real-time view of the scope. Theta Aurigui is currently about 42 degrees above the horizon, and it's a multiple star system. You see the scope has kind of settled down, so we'll come back to the live view of the live camera here, and we'll plate solve. You guys have been on the channel, you remember what that means. It's comparing the database that's associated with SharpCap together with the live view through the scope, and it's aligning the scope so that Theta Aurigui will be right there in the middle. And you see that brighter star that it pulled right to the middle. So let's zoom in on that brighter star, and we're going to guess that this star is part of that multi-star system. Just to check that, let's back off on our exposure a bit. Right now, we're at about 3 seconds at a gain of 400. So let's say we back that off to a gain of 100. And let's drop back to maybe 1 second exposures and see if that splits the star any deeper. I would say we're starting to see the beginnings of a split here. See how it looks like a double star system here. Just barely. Let's go back up to our 3 second exposure, and we could go back up to our 400 gain, and that'll pick up these stars around Theta Aurigui. This is about 100, and there's 150%. So just to get a look at what we should be seeing, let's first go to Bakich's book. It's target number 979 in Bakich's book. 979. And while we're looking here, we also want to get the live stream up on our little iPad here. So let's close out of YouTube and pull it up one more time. And let's go to our channel here, and there it is. Let's turn up that volume just to... Our channel here. Good. All right, I see we've got half a dozen people on, and welcome. We did not, publicize this in advance. This was just, it's a clear night, and we're still learning this gear, so we've not kind of taken the leap of publicizing it yet, and I apologize for that. But you guys who are on here, you must have subscribed and clicked on the bell, and that enables you to be notified when we're live. So that's why you're here. If you don't mind, put a note of where you're observing from. Now we have 8. Maybe put a note to let us know where you're observing from. So let's look at Bakich. I see you there, Wendy. Thanks for being on. Let's look at object 979 here. It says relatively close binary exhibit a marked difference in brightness. The primary outshines the secondary by 63 times. The brighter star appears white with perhaps a tinge of blue. The secondary appears light orange. So Bakich doesn't give us any kind of map. So let's go to Stellarium. Stellarium is our planetarium software, and we'll just Alt-Tab over to that. So here we are in Stellarium. Notice how we can go Stellarium Sync, and it'll queue us up immediately to the Theta star in this Charioteer or Auriga constellation. We'll zoom in on that. So see how in Stellarium, well, let's sync one more time. There we go. See how in Stellarium, these are, that was the beginning of that double star nature that we were seeing there. But let's look and see how far apart these are. They're only 3 arc seconds apart. Could that be right? 3 arc seconds? It's not very much, is it? Do you think that's 3 arc minutes? Let me hover over here and see if it tells us. It's not telling us. Whether that's arc seconds or arc minutes. That might be arc minutes. Let's assume 3 arc minutes. Double star up here, rotating variable star, magnitude 2.6. Separation. I wish the separation were up here, and I wonder if we clicked on here in, would that be here under configuration? Information. Let's see if we can get separation in that list up there. Bummer. Doesn't look like it gives us separation as a choice in Stellarium. It's listed here in AstroPlanner, but it doesn't tell the units. I'm pretty sure, though, it must be arc minutes. So, going back to the live view, as you can see, this star does look a little bit oblong, but when we try to zoom in, we're not really seeing 2 separate bodies, are we? Very pixelated. I don't think this is part of the star system here. Let's go back to Stellarium. See, that would be this star, for instance, and that star. And they're completely different Gaia number. So I would say this is a product of the RASA not being great for separating stars. Sarah Mans, good to have you from Pembroke Pines, Florida. Trevor, good to have you back from Melbourne. We've had you before. So, let's decrease this exposure one more time, just to see if we can possibly separate these at all. It's just too much glare right now. No. I don't think it's going to pick up the secondary star. Let's increase the gain up to 200. And then 300. No. So this is a limitation of the RASA telescope. You see it's about 2.5 degrees window on the sky. So it's a little bit too... But I'm telling you this, from the observations we've made in the past, we could tell this is too oblong. It's not enough of a pinpoint. So we knew there was a second body there by the evidence of the oblong nature of this dot. But it's just too bright of a magnitude, and it's outshining that secondary target. So let's go ahead and make our observation, and we'll note this. Let's see. We're going to say here in our observation, let's put the observation window right there. We're going to say our RASA couldn't split this target. Too bright of a primary and too close, 3.5 arc minutes of a separation. All right, that's a good target to start with. It's a nice, sure target. Now let's try some of these galaxies. I feel like we ought to sort this list again. We're going to sort by visibility and time. And then let's go up at the top. And it's telling us we could look at another star system. But let's catch this galaxy and see if we can catch it at 22 degrees. So we're going to slew directly to that. It's at 22 degrees. And it just depends as to what part of the sky it's in, as to whether or not we can catch it, because some parts of the sky, 22 degrees, is getting really close to our tree line. This is pointing in the northeast part of the sky. I can just tell by where the security camera is located. That's the WISE 3 security camera out there. So now we'll come back to our live view and let's do our plate solve and make sure we're pulled back into place. And I'm pretty sure we'll have to stack this target because it's a galaxy. This is NGC 3735. NGC 3735. Let's go to our sequencer and run prep for imaging only. And we're going to name this NGC 3735. So you can see this is a sequence in SharpCap that automates several different interactions. First, it sets the time of the camera's exposure to 20 seconds. And the second thing it does is it decreases the gain to 100. It starts the live stacking. It also resets. Now I'm going to go to this display histogram and make sure that's turned off. I can never quite figure out why isn't that turning off automatically. Then we're going to auto stretch this live histogram and then auto match the color. Now these bars, they haven't behaved quite as well for us since we went to this outside observing. That almost looked like some cloud cover in the, there's that galaxy in the middle. I don't know if you're seeing it. Trying to get our, ever since we went to this outside mini PC, there we go. I lost the ability to see the double-headed arrow on that live stacking histogram down there. Isn't that odd? It no longer turns to double-headed arrow all the time. Now let's zoom in on this galaxy. Look at, we're viewing it edge on. By edge on, we mean we're kind of looking at it as if we're lined up with it like a flying saucer. And you can see, we can see the bright core in the middle of it. That's a little bit too what we call stretched. And by saying stretched, what that means is we've established a new baseline for what constitutes the definition of darkness in our sky. And then we've picked out a new threshold for what constitutes our mid-level of brightness, and that brings in all of our target. So the reason we have to do this is because of all the light pollution. I don't know if you can see in our sky view. Let's get back to our sky view here. Well, still, what I want to show you, here we go, our sky view. You know, we don't really have our sky view in the screen tonight, do we? I wonder why that is. Let me see if I can do this real quick. Let's create a scene like this. So that is what we're going to do is we're going to add a scene, and we're going to call it Sky View. And in the Sky View, we're going to add is that called a window capture? Is that what it's called? Or a video capture device. And we're going to call it the Sky Cam. And the Sky Cam, no, it's not a video capture device. What is it? It's a what is it? An app? No, a window capture? Is that what it is? Skycam. And then we're going to, here we go, capture. No. Oh, I see. We can't do this because it's out there on the, that's why we can't do it. It's a part of, because it's outside there, it becomes a part of the monitor screen of our mini PC. And that's why we can no longer, now wait, maybe we can do this a different way. Let's get rid of this sidebar. And let's move this up. And then let's fold that screen in some. There we are. And let's make it about that size. Something like that. Actually, it doesn't have to be that small because, yes, it's going to have to be about like that. Let's pull this over here, and then let's move that over here. Something like that. Will that work for you? So that way you can keep seeing that. You can kind of keep an eye on these clouds here. And so we're peering here. There are some clouds, but they're just spotty. And so we're able to see this NGC 3735. Let's just see what Michael Bakich says about this. This is object 206. There's Trevor. Hi, Doug. This binary would most likely be 3 arc seconds. Okay, so it is arc seconds. All right. So I don't feel quite as bad then if our RASA is not seeing something that has a 3 arc second separation. That's tiny. Thanks a lot, Trevor, for helping us get a handle on that. All right, so we're at 206. Object number 206. And Bakich writes, you'll find our next object. It tells you where to find it. It's quite close to the Dragon's border with Ursa Major. The spiral tilts 13 degrees from edge on, making it quite attractive. Yeah, that's true. Through a 10-inch telescope, the galaxy appears 4 times as long as it is wide. Boy, to me it appears a lot longer. At high magnification, NGC 3735 reveals a bright core that runs roughly 2/3 the length of this galaxy. All right, so let's zoom in on it a little more. I guess he's counting this whole thing as the core. I think when we start live stacking also, we cheat a little bit. And our 10-inch starts behaving like a 20-inch telescope. Maybe sometimes, in some situations, it has literally behaved like a 32-inch scope with this live stacking that's present in SharpCat. So thank you SharpCat. All right, so that's NGC 3735. Let's do a quick observation on that. We're just going to say 11.8 mag. NGC 3735 was shining bright, even though it was only 22 degrees up in the horizon, up from the horizon. Now, let's go look at this in Stellarium real quick, just to give us a perspective of how Stellarium views this. We'll back off so we're seeing the big picture of the sky again, and then we'll do the Stellarium sync. And this will also show us where we're looking in the sky. Sure enough, it's north-northeast. And look, here's the Big Dipper. So this NGC 3735 is out in front. I mean, if you took the Big Dipper and swung it through the sky, you would barely lasso it. That's where it's located, just for orientation. And again, to give us perspective on this, this is such an exotic galaxy target. It's so exotic that Stellarium doesn't have any artwork on it. So, in other words, this is a tiny object. It's not on anybody's, Messier list or Caldwell list or, any of the kind of typical catalogs of Stephen James O'Meara type catalogs. It's an exotic target. But Bakich said, you got to see this before you die. So that was the planetarium software. Let's go back to the live view now. It does look like a flying saucer, doesn't it? All right, let's back out to 100% again. And then let's do this sequence called prep for, or set exposure to 3 seconds. And let's go to the next target. So we'll go to, here's one at 16 degrees above the horizon. Let's see if we can catch it. Again, going back to our scope cam, you can see that we're dialing down closer to the horizon. You might be curious, what illuminates our telescope out there? And for the most part, it's nothing. That observatory is just pitch black out there. There's no moon. Now I see a little bit of reflection here. That might be from the neighbor's lights at the end of his driveway. And they're pretty bright. But there's no light inside the observatory. This is just a little tiny, tiny wheat lamp kind of thing on our roof, rollback roof opener. So not very much light out there at all. This is more a tribute to this WISE 3 security camera. And it does not have an infrared beacon on it. This is all being done through the magic of I don't know, that security camera's amazing lens. I mean, the actual sensor that it uses is amazing. Okay, now we'll do a plate solve here. And it looks like these are above the horizon, even though we're only at 16 degrees we've got a pretty good horizon there. So it looks like the scope has settled. So now we'll go back to our prep for imaging only, and we'll put in the name, and it's NGC 4125. What does that NGC stand for again? Is it New General Catalog? Is that right? And I'm trying to remember, did the Herschels start this, I think? And then maybe the son, in other words, William and his sister started it, I think, didn't they? But the son, didn't he? John Herschel finished it. All right, we're going to do a new auto stretch down there and also a color stretch. Although this is basically the same part of the sky, so we probably didn't need to mess with it too much. But look, that bar is just a tiny bit off. You want that bar, or at least I like for it to be just almost lined up with that crest in sharp cap. And you know, I'm sure you're already aware, if you hold down the shift key and then hold that bar, it lets you do fine tuning. So now the gradations of stretching are much tighter. Okay, so let's zoom in. This is more of a, what you might call an irregular galaxy, maybe a elliptical, sometimes they're called. It doesn't really look like a true spiral, does it? We can't really see the spiral. And I've done some research on what does it mean when you stop using the name spiral and you start using the name elliptical. And basically what it means is you can't see the arms. And once you can no longer see the arms, then you refer to that as more like an elliptical, or that's what this is. You don't really see much of the arms. It's just a blob, basically. So we're going to open up a quick observation window here and say we could easily locate NGC 4125 from the very first capture in stacking. And those are at 20 seconds at 100 gain. Ellipsoidal or elliptical. Not too much spiral arm view. Let's see what Bakich says. This is object 232. Got about 9 or 10 on the stream. 232. A lot of folks end up watching the stream afterward as a recording. And I can see why that's handy for you all. So if you're watching the recording, welcome. Please, if you want to be alerted to when we pop on, you could hit subscribe and then the bell. That way, if you happen to be looking at your phone or your device, laptop, it does kind of get your attention perhaps. But otherwise, 4125, object 232. It tells you how to find it, and then it says through an 8-inch telescope you'll see a bright, broadly concentrated oval core with a surrounding haze. That's exactly the way we would have described it. Larger apertures extend the length of the elliptical galaxy, so it is elliptical, and some observers have even noted a nearly stellar nucleus. Yeah, we can see almost a stellar nucleus as well, can't we? See that? Tiny stellar, almost looks like as if it's a star. Nucleus almost appears as a star. Now once we do an observation, you can see how it creates a little boxed in number in Astroplanner. It also removes the yellow highlighting, and that way we know that that object has been observed. Okay, so we're going to reach down here and say resort the list by visibility and time. I'm going to turn on the heater. We're just starting to get a little bit of cold feet, not in the metaphorical sense, but in the reality sense. A little bit of chilly feet in here. But to be fair, the office turns down the temperature at night, and I don't usually dial it up, just use this little space heater. I shouldn't complain because outside it's 36 degrees. So don't get me wrong, I'm happy for the 67 or 68 degrees in here, whatever it is. Okay, so now we're going to go back to 3-second exposures. And then we'll hit the home button. That'll take us to the top of our list. Now it is looking at taking us to Delta Orionis. It's a triple star. So let's go there. Delta Orionis. It's at 32 degrees. See how there's a little bit of glimmer. Boy, look at the increasing clouds up there too. That's going to be a factor. See those kind of streams of clouds in the scope cam view. See that haze? That's going to be a factor for us. Okay, the scope looks like it's settled, so we'll go back to our live view and let's do our plate solve again. Yeah, I don't know if you can see over here to the right. Look at all those, whatever kind those are, cumulus clouds. That looks like it's right in the middle of our frame. Oh, but look, we've got a nice clear picture of this star system. Now, if that is one of the stars in the system, don't we have a nice view of the three? Here's your primary, the secondary, and there's what you might call the tertiary, you think? To check that, let's go over first to Stellarium. So I'm just going to Alt-Tab over to Stellarium and then let's back off a little bit so we get a picture of the whole sky. By the way, this is a photorealistic horizon, if you've been with us before. And then we also use a little red line, and we try to let the photorealistic horizon, we try to drop it down a little bit below the real horizon. But you can see how the red line is roughly tracing what the photorealistic horizon reveals. And we make the red line the real horizon. And that way we can see objects that are just about ready to rise, or in this case over here, set. So you can see where this is with 16 degrees. We've got plenty of sky left here. Although, the farther down you get, the less quality the sky is, because you're looking through more of the sky. Why? Stellarium sync. Oh, we had not done the sync yet. Here we are. Let's back off again and see where we are in the sky. Now we're farther east-southeast. And you can see that in the scope cam. See how it's looking more toward the right, toward the east? So this is up about 32 degrees. So this is the primary delta, right? Delta, yeah. Yeah, see up here in the upper left? That's the little Greek D. So this is the delta star, and then this is delta 2. See how it shows it as a secondary? Now let's see if we can find the 3. So let's click around here. Not that, that's a Gaia. Not that. Boy. I don't see the third star in the system. If it is, if the third star is plotted, let's go to this object and see if we can detect it in Bakich's thing. Unfortunately, his maps aren't great. They're 950 is his object number. 950. Okay, this is one of the sky's easiest double stars to find. Just locate Orion's belt. Mintaka is the northernmost of the 3 stars. The brighter component shines with a pure white light. Mintaka B, only 2% as bright as the primary, glows with a deep blue color. This star's name descends to us from the Arabic al-Mintaka, which means the belt. Well, right, so we don't really know where the third star is, if it is a triple system, do we? I wonder if we were to go out to the web where did the web go? Oh, I bet it's not up there. I bet it's down here. Yes. Okay, so let's go and say Delta Orionis triple star system map. I wonder if we can find a decent map. A map of Delta Orionis shows its complex structure with a visible where is the map? Here it is. Well, he doesn't show it either. We just need a better atlas for this particular exercise, don't we? Wonder if Delta Orionis Atlas. Triple star systems. Star Atlas, Delta Orionis. Well, you know what I'm going to do? I own an old subscription to probably a better atlas than Stellarium, and maybe I'll oh, look, I wonder if these two, I wonder if this separates at higher magnification. Anyway, we're seeing this as a double. I'm just going to do a quick observation here and say we had no problem splitting the double, but never tracked down which was the third star. Hi, Mike. Good to have you aboard from Atlanta, Georgia. Delta 3. Anyway, what I might do is just get that atlas up and running so that in times like this, we'll have a better atlas to be able to track down which is the third star. If we're going to do some of these triple stars. Boy, look at this. This sky is starting to look pretty mean here, gang. Get a load of that. It's 11:44. Tell you what, why don't we go ahead and call it because of that. Oh, let's do one more. Let's do one more before we go. How about at 30 degrees above the horizon, NGC 3183? How about that? Let's go back to 100% here. Let's slew to this. Look at all those clouds. It's a wonder we're seeing anything up there, isn't it? Peering through all those, whatever kind those are, cumulus? If they are, they're accumulated cumulus, aren't they? This is a Pier-Tech Tele-station 2 observatory, and that's the adjustable height pier that Pier-Tech makes. And I like it because you can raise the scope up so that the base of the scope is almost exactly parallel with it's even with the top of the roof of the observatory. And then when the night is done, we fold the telescope down and lower this adjustable height pier, and it sinks underneath, and then we can close the roof. So it really works well. That's from Pier-Tech. Okay, let's see if we're going to be able to make this out. I don't even know if we'll have enough stars to be able to do a plate solve. Looks like we did. But this is definitely a more challenging observing environment now with all those. Take a look over there to the right at all those cumulus clouds that we're peering through. All right, so let's you could just tell that we just whoop, that was the wrong script. This is supposed to be this. And this is NGC 3183. Back in the old days, when Emerald Hill Skies started out, we had to set everything up from scratch in the yard outside the office here. And I mean, it was 45 minutes to set things up at the least. And probably then by the time we did the stuff inside here, it would make it easily an hour to set it up and then another 35 or 40 minutes to tear it down. We just had to set up so many things. And now the observatory part, it just takes probably 5 minutes or less. So that's amazing, isn't it, to get through all that fog of those cumulus clouds. We're going to use the plate solve only, and then we're going to use the deep sky image annotation to make sure we're looking at 3183. So it's right there in the center. So now we'll zoom in and we see where it's supposed to be. Okay, so now we'll get rid of the deep sky image annotation. That's a feature built into SharpCap. And let's do an auto stretch on that. Boy, look at all the clouds. But that did bring it into focus, didn't it? Wow, I'm kind of amazed. So what you're seeing there with all that confetti looking stuff, that's the atmospheric light pollution catching on all those cumulus clouds. And the cumulus clouds are acting like a projector screen for all of the light pollution here around Louisville. We're just on the outskirts. Hein, good to have you aboard. I think you've been with us before. Are you viewing from Germany? I can't remember. Welcome, Hein. So it sort of acts like a projection screen for all the light pollution. This is a city of about 1 million people, 1.5 million maybe, and it's a lot of light pollution. We're running a light pollution filter. It's the Celestron light pollution filter that's designed specifically for the RASA 11. It's about a $500 filter, but it can't get rid of everything, especially when you put those clouds up there to act like a projection screen to catch all that light pollution. So that confetti is SharpCap starting to figure out, oh, so this is not a star, is it? And how does SharpCap know that? Because that light pollution sort of like tingles in the clouds. It sort of twinkles a little bit too much to be a star. It varies, in other words. And what SharpCap does is it diminishes the value in the frame of anything that twinkles like that too much. Like I mean to say, it's sort of, what would you call that? Just sparkling like light pollution does. It's not a constant source of light. Now stars twinkle, but the middle of the star actually stays the same when it twinkles. So what SharpCap does with the middle of the star is it accentuates it and brings the light up. So it's amplifying the star and diminishing the light pollution. And this has been one of the most amazing inventions in modern astronomy, if you ask me, for the light polluted observer. Previously I had to drive an hour and 40 minutes south and then take 45 minutes to set up the telescope. And then when I was done, 30 minutes to tear it down, an hour and 40 minutes to drive back. It was crazy. So you wouldn't do that for a 1 hour observing night. But here it's just 5 minutes to warm up the observatory. And now, since we can observe in light polluted Louisville using live stacking and SharpCap, it's a much better deal. Okay, let's zoom in now that we've accumulated 4 minutes of frames. And you can see how this is not a perfect image of NGC 3183 by any means. It's sort of like what you would have to call, it's warped. At the same time, remember that NGC 3183 is only 12th magnitude. So it's not going to be very bright in anybody's telescope tonight. 12th magnitude object. We're zoomed in at 300, that's actually 400%. It's such a tiny object. It's so tiny. Is that 2 arc minutes? Boy, I've got to look that up in SharpCap. What are the measurements of that column? Surely that's arc minutes. 2 arc minutes? Or would that be 2 arc seconds? I bet that's 2 arc minutes in that column in an astroplanner. So it's a very tiny object, 2 arc minutes wide. But now, a while ago when Trevor came on, he theorized that it was actually arc seconds. Well, let's look it up and see what Michael Bakich says. Maybe he shows us. Object number 140. 140. And we'll get the confirmation here. Yeah, arc minutes. So it's 2 arc minutes wide. And through a 10-inch telescope, it appears roughly twice as long as it is wide with an even illumination. Bigger scopes and higher powers don't reveal all that much more. There's a tight group of 4 14th magnitude stars that are close by. And that would be those stars that we're looking at, I guess. Let's pull out just a little bit and see. Maybe. It's an interesting straight line of a wall of 5 stars, isn't it? So it's a tiny object, but it's starting to look more like a galaxy, isn't it? So let's just do a quick observation here and say this target was tiny, 2 arc minutes wide, 12th magnitude dim, but we could still pick it up through a cloud bank after 4 minutes. A dim spiral. All right, why don't we go ahead and call it at that then. So we've hit a couple of double star system stars. We've hit a couple of galaxies. And more importantly, we're still learning to get around on this new mini PC approach. You remember the last year and a half or 2 years, we had used fiber optic cable to create a remote USB hub. And then we brought the USB signal inside via fiber optics, reconstituted it as USB, and plugged it into our laptop as live USB signals. And for me, I just finally concluded, like everybody told me we would, finally concluded that wasn't stable enough, even though it was over a nice fiber optic relay setup. And now we're using what everybody told me we would have to go to, and it's working great. A mini PC out there. And you can look in the description below and see the parameters of that mini PC. It's roughly equivalent to the mini PC that you get with the Prima Luce Eagle. The top level, I forget what they call it. It's got 3 initials like MT whatever. It's like a $2,500 mini PC made for the pier or the scope, and it rides on top of the scope or at the base of the pier. We have ours at the base of the pier. But this mini PC, as you'll see in the description when you look below, it's just a normal mini PC rather than the special Prima Luce version. But it was only, I forget what we paid for it, like $400, so a fraction of the price, 20% of the price of the Prima Luce model. I kind of wish that we had the Prima Luce model, but it didn't look like we would gain that much. And it basically, it replaced some of our, due controlling, which we already had in the Pegasus Astro power box. It provided some USB ports, which we already had in the Pegasus Astro USB hub. So it looked like we really didn't have to go with it, since we already had this other equipment anyway. And that allowed us to do this for a fraction of the cost. So thanks for hanging with us while we get used to this. We are very close now to feeling the confidence that we can start promoting these again and sort of committing to being ready by a certain time. I think tonight I still was fidgeting around with a couple things. You saw the way we were arranging that sky cam over there, putting this sky cam view over here. We were still getting used to all that. So anyway, we'll probably promote next time now, and that way people will have a heads up that we're going to be on. And if you're one of the ones that didn't get the heads up, I apologize. Like I say, it's just because I don't feel confident quite yet enough, or haven't felt it, and I hope you'll forgive us for that. Anyway, thanks to the Lord for making these cool objects that we look at. Thanks to you for being a part of this. This is maybe team-operated astronomy. Thanks for those who watched live, and for those who watched on the recorded version. We'll look forward to seeing you next time. Don't forget to subscribe so you can see content like this. Again, hit that bell if you want, so it'll actually, get your heads up that we're on live in case you missed the email. You could also go to emeraldhillskies.com and sign up for the email notification, which we'll start using again probably next time. Okay, God bless. Have a good evening. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.